Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray and I teach watercolor, and today we are doing our Bokeh Mushrooms project. I love this project. I think it's so fun. I love the colors, and you might be saying, Sarah, what's up with all the bokeh backgrounds? And for that I say, I really like it. I don't know what to tell you. I think it's cool. So that's what we're doing.
Make it happen if you love it.
That's right. We have Keenan here working the cameras.
Keenan's here, hello.
And we are going to be doing this project in 5 steps. So our very first step is we are going to be doing the background with our bokeh. Our second step is we'll be doing our mushroom tops. Our third step is we'll be doing our mushroom bottoms. Our fourth step is we will be putting in our foreground grass. And then the very last step is any finishing details. We have 4 colors with this project. I'll flip this over. Our first color is tiger orange. Our second color is space blue. Our third color, rose red. And our very last color, can you guess it, Keenan? Have you been paying attention? What is it?
Purple.
Ah! Do you see it on the screen?
No. I'm not looking at the screen.
It's Paynes Gray. Wasn't even close. You had literally 2 options. It was either black or Paynes Gray.
I went with, you got red, blue and you got red. I was like, purple.
Okay, these are our 4 colors today. They're our liquid watercolor in-house brand called Dandelion Paint. Of course, please use whatever colors that you have, but please know that liquid watercolors in our in-house paint brand are very vibrant, which I love. But so if you're using a different paint brand, it just might not be like the same kind of punch of color that you'll see on the screen. So you're not doing anything wrong, it's just the type of supplies. The 3 brushes we're using for this project are around 2, around 6, and around 12. Again, use whatever supplies that you have. We got a paper towel. We're using our Let's Make Art watercolor paper. I have my Holbein soft tape taped off, and we have an outline. We are going to do our oath. Nope, we're gonna do our outline and then our oath and then get painting. So this outline came on a full sheet of paper, and because we're painting this on a 6x9, I just cut the outline portion out, just the mushroom portion out, so I can easily place it on my paper. And then I'm gonna take my graphite paper and do dark, shiny side down. Okay. And you can use a pen or a pencil, and whatever mark you make is going to be transferred to your paper, like so. Now, graphite paper is not the only way that you can transfer outlines to your watercolor paper. A lot of people prefer to use light boxes. If you do not have a light box, I think we sell a really affordable one on our website. Also, you can just use a window. Mm-hmm. Or you can make your own with like a clear baking sheet and a flashlight.
Yep.
There's a lot of options here. By a lot of options, I mean 2.
I've got more.
Oh, okay.
You could get a strip of LED lights.
Yeah.
And paste them to something that is a clear surface.
Yes.
You know, maybe you have a glass desk.
Yes.
Right? I have a glass desk at home.
You only need to buy a strip of LED lights and a glass desk.
No, that's all you need.
So simple.
It's hundreds of easy dollars. My solutions are cheap.
Problem solving skills, 100%. Excellent. Just need a glass desk. Okay, I'm using a blue pen so I can see all the areas that I've already outlined. It is normal for you to accidentally miss an area when you're tracing. Don't stress out. This is just a guide for you. And then, kind of like to lift up and check. All right, that looks pretty good. All right, let's do our oath. If you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
And I promise to have fun.
Thank you. Oh, see, I forgot a little line right there, but that's okay. I'll put it in. This project is from our Hygge box, and Hygge comes from Denmark, and I like to define it as like cozy contentment, comfort, small pleasures, that kind of thing. And to prepare for this tutorial, I actually am wearing one of my favorite sweaters, which is my grandma's sweater. And
That's nice.
I know, I love it so much. And so I just thought, like, cozy, chunky, small little family passed down sweater.
Cool.
Pray I don't get paint on it, okay?
That's what I was gonna say. I noticed your sleeves are rolled up.
They're rolled up. I got my apron on.
Smart.
I'm protected. You just can't throw paint at me today, Keenan.
I haven't done that in years.
You should have said days.
I know.
That would have been funnier.
I thought about it. Yours is just, it just rolls off the tongue.
It does. It does. Okay, so we are going to start with step one of this project, and we are going to do our background. Now, we're going to work fairly quickly, so I'm going to talk through the process before we start so you guys have a heads up of what's coming up. I'm going to use my round 12, and in the background here, working around my mushrooms, I'm going to be doing a green background. I'm going to be doing a dark value over here, and then as I move to the right-hand side, I'm going to be getting lighter in value. That just automatically is going to create like a light change in our background, which will create kind of dimension without us having to do a lot of work. So I like having that kind of value change. I also will be dropping in dark like areas to get like an unevenness. And then I'm going to be using a damp brush or a paper towel to lift circles out to kind of get that fuzzy background photography look called bokeh or bokeh. I can't remember how it's pronounced.
I like bokeh.
Yeah, I do too. I'm just going to say that. Okay. So I have my 12, and if you want to wet the paper first and then drop in color, you can, or a mixture of both, whatever feels more comfortable to you. One thing I am going to do before I start is I'm going to mix a little bit of green on my palette. So I have my Tiger Orange and Space Blue which personally, when you mix those, you get a great green, especially if you let there be a little bit more blue in that mixture. It's just like this really lovely, deep, I don't know, foresty kind of color. So I have a few different greens going on. Rinse my brush, and let's go for it. Now, when I get to, the reason why I decided to do the light value change over on the right-hand side is it's actually really tricky to work around a subject, like what we're doing right now with painting our background around the mushrooms, because it's just like little itty bitty spaces you got to work around. So sometimes I'll just use a light value, because if there is like an area that I accidentally like didn't make, or I don't have to do as many, like, I don't know, it like is easier to fill in quicker. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So we can just like start here. So I'm going to start on the right hand side and then make my way across. Try again to avoid the mushrooms. If you overlap a little, it's not the end of the world, but do what you can. Drop in little hints of other colors as I'm going. I'm also not going to try and do any of the bokeh circles behind the mushrooms. I just wanted to keep it a little bit more simple. But again, this is your painting, so if you're just like, I'm feeling edgy, I'm feeling like I want to try something, go ahead and try and do the bokeh all the way around. So I'm picking up more paint and more green as I move across. And I'm also just letting some of it just like blend and move. I'm just dropping in dark values, dropping in some yellows. Let's drop in some dark blues.
Whoa.
It's just kind of this unevenness, messy.
Very messy.
Very, very messy. And if you're looking at this and you're like, I don't like how messy that is, you can smooth it out if you want. I don't mind how messy it is as I smooth it out. But, and then maybe I need like a little bit more green up here. But again, I'm trying to work quickly because I don't want the color to stay too long on my paper or else it'll be harder to lift out. Okay, now you can take paper towel and just kind of start doing circles. Now, when I'm rubbing this paper towel, I am not pressing down super hard because if you scrub your paper, it's possible that it will like degrade the paper. So you want to be gentle. And then any areas that I find to be kind of distracting in terms of like streakiness, I will put a bokeh circle over it. So as you can see, because this is wet, when I lift out my circles, it's creating like a soft edge. Like it kind of like diffuses. And I like that look personally.
I do too. I was thinking that as you were doing, I was like, ooh, the neat thing is going to be that as it dries,
yeah,
it diffuses.
Exactly.
Today's repeat day.
I do feel like this streakiness is bothering me a little bit. So I'm just going to drop in some color. Another thing that you can do, like let's say you're dropping in color and you're just getting streaky, and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I can't smooth it out. Let me grab something.
Leave.
Just walk away. Something that's super helpful for me that I found when blending is you take a dry brush, preferably like a wash or a mop, and you just kind of work the area back and forth and it will smooth out.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a great way to smooth. All right, I feel like I need to go darker in my value on my left-hand side, so I'm just going to be like really edgy and do another layer. Hopefully you guys went dark enough that you do not have to do this, but I just really want that strong contrast, so I needed to go darker. Okay, and then I'm gonna just smooth that transition. As you can see, I'm kind of covering over my bokeh, but.
Sarah, what brush did you end up grabbing to use that as a dry brush?
This is a 1-inch wash.
Sweet.
Okay, now that feels good and dark. And now let's lift. So you can use a damp brush. So the nice thing about a damp brush is it's a little bit easier to control the size of your circles. Like with your paper towel, I can never get like a perfect circle. It's always a bit wonky. But with a dry brush, it's easier for me to, or with a damp brush, it's easier for me to shape the circle. I have found too that it gets a more realistic bokeh look if you let your bokeh circles overlap. And if you want to keep lifting with your brush, what I like to do is I like to wet it, lift, dry the excess paint on my paper towel, and then go back to it.
Man, good call on the darker value.
It looks better, doesn't it?
It does. That looks good. These bokeh paintings are too fun.
I just think, well, I guess I feel like when it comes to a new technique, like the first time we did bokeh was I think in the June box, Waves of Change. And it was so fun and I loved it. But I feel like in order to get a really good hold on a technique, you need to like try it in a few different forms and a few different ways, like spaced out from each other. You know what I mean? Because one, spaced out from each other, it just gives you time to work on your skill set in general. And two, the more you do a technique, you're gonna learn something new every time. So that's why it's just like, yeah, we are leaning into this kind of bokeh look a little bit more than maybe I've done previous, but that's because it's a new technique and I want us to keep revisiting it, because the more you do a new technique, the more you perfect it. And it gets easier, a little bit easier every time.
It's fun to watch them appear. From just a smeared background to a bokeh background.
Yeah, and I feel like I need, do you think I should have one up here or have one down here? Or both?
Down there.
Down? I'm gonna do a little bit smaller. Okay. The other interesting thing about bokeh that I have found when looking at photographs is like, I'm really just lifting color out. But if you remembered through our candle tutorial from the Sacred Shadows box, I also was putting some color in. So if you look at a bokeh background in a photograph, some of those like flares or those like circles that you're seeing are a lighter value, and actually some are a darker value. And with watercolor, that can be a little bit tricky because like you can't keep putting in lighter values. But like sometimes, and I'm just gonna test this, that area is not dry enough, but I'm gonna take just yellow, find an area that's a little bit more dry and a little bit lighter in value. I'm gonna see what it's like to add a little.
Ooh. That's fun.
I mean, take this as you will. You don't have to use it. But sometimes I feel like it can bring a little bit of that kind of layered look back. But you want to do it when the area is a little bit more dry, so then it doesn't just bleed out and fuzz out everywhere.
Cool.
I feel like this needs to have a little bit more color. Yep, that feels better.
Nice.
And I think I'm gonna do another yellow bokeh over here just so this part of the painting connects with this part of the painting. If that makes sense. You picking up what I'm putting down?
Yeah, that makes sense. It probably depends on what your background looks like, but when you started to add color, it like framed in and added more to that yellow that was already there.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
cool.
wondering if I should actually, let's see what it would be like if I try and lift more color out of this. Because I do really like how in this reference photo I have like a white spot almost. And it's possible that I just didn't work fast enough to lift it quick enough to get white. And sometimes that's okay. Sometimes that's just the way that it works, where it's just like, bokeh is one of those techniques that we can use, but there will be a limit to what you can do with these tools that you have in front of you. And it's just more like, all right, that's just what it is today, and that's okay.
Would there be any benefit of doing a quarter of the paper at a time instead of getting the whole paper wet and working it in sections, or would that make it more choppy?
It would make it more choppy because if you were to section it off, then the areas where they connect, you would probably get a hard line because there would be different drying times. And that's how we get blooms and like those hard edges within a painting, is if there's an unevenness in our water disbursement and drying times. I'm gonna lift a little bit of this yellow out to see if it, oh yeah, that feels better. And maybe just a little yellow here. Okay, that feels pretty good. I'm gonna leave it. I'm just gonna leave it. But if you wanna try chunking it up to see if that's easier for you, try it. There's nothing wrong with trying something, because maybe that works better for you. Okay, so what we are going to do now is focus on our mushroom tops, but you wanna make sure that your painting is completely dry at this point. So I'm gonna use my heated craft tool to kind of dry it off to make sure it's nice and dry. How many times can I say dry? Do you mind handing me that?
Heated craft tool?
Yeah.
You got it.
Thanks. I'm gonna try something. I'm gonna try actually blending this out. I don't know if it'll work because I feel like there actually is a very obvious edge where I stopped the bokeh. You see that? It's like a boop, 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 boop. It's like almost this glass thing covering it. So I want to make that line feel not as obvious, or blend a little bit better around my mushrooms. So again, you might not need to do this, but we have to kind of react to the painting in front of us and decide what it needs. Okay, so already I feel like that feels better. And at this point, I can feel myself stretching my paper to the point, and by stretching, I'm like working it. Like I can see it start to peel a little bit along the top. And that happens to me sometimes no matter what paper I use. It really just depends on like how hard I'm working it. So if you notice that, I don't take it as a sign of like, oh, this is now trash. It's now a sign of like, okay, I need to leave that area alone, you know? It's like a sign for you to go easy. Mm-hmm. It's like your paper giving you a yellow light, you know?
A yellow light, nice.
Yeah, they're like, oh, hold on. And I just want a little bit of darker values in here, and so sometimes I'll shape the bokeh and paint around it. But then that makes my circles sometimes funky shaped too, so I gotta keep reshaping it. It's really missing the dark in here, so I'm kind of adding it now, but I just want to acknowledge that like this is tricky to do. It's tricky to add stuff like this after the fact and have it feel natural, like blend nicely together. So if you guys just want to watch me instead of trying it for your own, that is fine. I feel like this needs some color. Okay, that feels better to me. Now I'm gonna leave it alone. All right, now I'm gonna actually try it. So when you're doing these bokeh circles, I feel like I'm trying to communicate. What I have learned when doing them is like you pay attention to them a lot, right? Because they're a significant part of the painting. But sometimes I focus on them so much that the bokeh texture or the effect actually distracts my viewers from the subject of my painting. So that I think is actually the tricky thing with this bokeh technique is how can we do it in a way where it's effective, where it communicates what we're trying to let it communicate without it being the most significant part of our painting and taking away visually and compositionally from our foreground or what should be in the front, which is our mushrooms. So like, we'll see as I paint, but I just want to like call attention to it that sometimes we'll work on it so much that we'll actually create very strong contrast and very sharp shapes, and both of those things will bring it to the foreground when really what we want it to do is push back to allow our mushrooms to pop forward. Okay, all right, so now we're going to do our mushrooms, and as you can see we made some little marks, which is like little growths on the top of our mushroom heads. So I'm going to paint around those, but if you have like a masking fluid pen, that would work just as well too. And what we're going to do is we're going to essentially think about the three-dimensionality of these mushrooms, right? They're round, so they're coming out towards us, and then the sides are going away and wrapping around the rest of the mushroom. So to communicate that dimensionality on this, we need to have the edges be a darker value, and then as it works its way towards the middle, it's gonna turn like a lighter red. Now for me, because I wanted to keep like the vibrancy, I decided to add more yellow and orange to my red for my highlights instead of just adding water. You can add water, but it's gonna give it kind of a pink color. There's nothing wrong with that, but I really wanted it to be like vibrant, so I decided to add orange and yellow as my highlight. Okay. That is called adjusting your values by hue, which is where we add colors to it to give it a sense of a different value instead of just a lighter value of the same color. So if this area is kind of my highlighted section, I'm going to start with red. I'm going to use my 6, or you can use your 2, whatever's easier, and I'm just going to start painting around the little thingies. And that's their technical name, you can look it up.
Yeah, I've read that about those.
And then I'm going to add a little bit of water to get this red to spread, but I definitely want it to be making sure it's starting to get a little bit lighter. And then I'm going to grab some tiger orange. And right here, I'm just going to like drop it in and let that blend with my red. Okay. And then as it kind of goes out and down, let me smooth the top of this. I'm going to take my rose red and add a tiny bit of, you can either do space blue. Actually, that is what I'm going to use, space blue. And a tiny bit of space blue is going to create this really pretty burgundy color. And then you just paint that along the edges.
That is a great color.
Isn't that a beautiful color?
Wow. Especially with that combo of the yellow in the middle of that mushroom. It looks like a sunspot.
It's like that light is strong.
It is strong.
The light is strong within you, mushroom.
I was hoping you were gonna say with this one, like the force is strong.
Wait, let's start over.
Okay.
The light is strong with it. Wait, what is it?
Are you okay?
No! Woo. Okay, So this is looking pretty cool. I will say that my kind of burgundy color maybe got a little bit too heavy, like thick. So if that happens, you can just take a clean brush and lift. And kind of control a little bit where those values go. That feels better to me. That like transition feels more.
The other one looked like it was kind of burnt.
Sunburnt.
Before you was like, ew. I was going for the sunspot all over.
Okay. And like you can play with it too, where if you're just like, I like the warmth, but maybe that yellow is just too much. You can just take pull from a little bit of red that's around and just doing a little light layer of red over it will still keep that saturation, but soften that highlight. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's up to you. And we're gonna essentially repeat that same thing across all three. So I got my red.
You may not know what this is, but currently that mushroom the first mushroom, looks like the crest of the Uchiha.
I don't know what that is.
That's okay.
What is that from?
Don't worry about it. Never mind. Forget I mentioned it.
You embarrassed
It's
now?
a whole nother nerd. Whole nother level of nerd.
I appreciate nerds.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about it or no?
No, you can Google it.
Okay.
You can.
It's because it's inappropriate, huh?
It's not inappropriate.
Keenan.
It's just.
We're a professional, family-friendly company. Okay, so as I get to the center, I'm going to add a little bit of water to make that red naturally a lighter value, okay? And then I'm going to grab my tiger orange, drop it in over that kind of lighter red. And as you can see, I let the colors, like, even though I knew yellow was going to go there, I still painted red there. And even though I'm putting in this kind of yellow and I'm letting it go to the right-hand side, that doesn't mean that that's like the hard edge. I like to let the colors overlap with each other to make a smoother and more natural transition. So I'm going to be painting red again over this yellow. And you really just want to leave the spot or area alone that is like the lightest value. That's the area that I won't touch. But all the other areas, I kind of let these colors overlap so they can transition. And then along the very edge here, you want to make sure that it won't bleed into your first one. We're going to put in our kind of burgundy edge. And this is kind of really why I love watercolor, is like usually just dropping in the color and then kind of just working that line a little bit. You get this really wonderful value transition or color transition, where I feel like with other paints, like if you guys remember, like the candle tutorial with the gouache, I really had to work that area back and forth over and over to get that transition as smooth as I wanted. But with watercolor, I feel like it just kind of does it. And I love that about it. Okay. And sometimes, like after I paint it, like my edge will be a little bit crooked so I can go back and smooth it out. Or like mushrooms are wonky, you know what I mean? Like some of them will have kind of a funky shape.
Yeah, mushrooms are crazy looking.
And if you can see here, there's a little bit of a white spot from where I didn't paint the background and where my mushroom top starts. Do you see that? Right here?
Yes.
When that happens, then I'm just like, okay, now my mushroom bottom goes here. And you just kind of paint over it, so then it really does push that background back.
Nice.
And again, you can control how bright you want that yellow to be. I'm going to just soften it a little bit with a tiny bit of red that I'm pulling into it. There we go. Isn't that pretty though?
I love the orange part.
I know, I love doing like painting anything red like this, mushroom tops, ladybugs. I'm just like, give me that orange yellow highlight. Yes. I love it.
Yes.
I love it so much.
It's required.
Okay, now we're moving on to our last mushroom. And again, it's the same thing. And I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger to meet and kind of overlap to the background a little bit. And that's usually why when you add backgrounds to paintings, you want to do the background first and then the foreground or whatever on top, because just by overlapping the painting lines, it's automatically going to create a visual, like a separation by doing that. It's when you, the background lines, if they overlap anything in the foreground, that just a small thing like that could cause a little bit of spatial confusion to your viewer. So like, it's just a simple thing, but it can really help of pushing something back by actually doing background, then the next layer, then the next layer, then the next layer. Now, sometimes I mess up the background and I gotta go back and fix it. And that's okay too.
Yeah, that's okay. Sometimes you forget you painted the background.
Sometimes.
And you have to go back.
Sometimes you're like, what world am I living in? What's going on? It's one of those days today. And you have every single right to look at what I'm doing and to say, you know what, Sarah? I don't actually like that. So I'm going to do this. Maybe I don't like the orange highlight. I like the pink highlight instead.
Ooh.
Go for it. Like, this is where you guys get to make the decisions. Maybe you're like, yeah, red's cool, but what if we did purple? You know what I mean? Like, you are.
Oh yeah, purple would be a good, that's the fourth color.
Yeah, there we
So
go.
you nailed it.
But you get to create your own world here. And I know that as we're learning, we want to create what we see. That's how we define, oh, I'm good at art because I can recreate a tree and really, really well. And that's true. There's a technical ability being able to render something realistically. And there's a value to it. But also the joy of art is creating something from your mind, from something that maybe somebody wouldn't see in nature, because it gives them an opportunity to see a world that they haven't seen before, or maybe it gives them a way to communicate, or you're able to communicate like a feeling, or it gives them an opportunity to see something in a new way. And I think that's the actual joy of art and creating. And so if you're getting frustrated with how you're not able to kind of realistically create some things in your paintings, know that that is not the end-all be-all when it comes to art. Give yourself permission to explore other ways of communicating something or a world that you see. Okay, I feel pretty good about that. Can I see the overhead? Yeah, oh gosh, and red and green are complementary colors. So when you put them next to each other, they make each other pop.
Yes.
Which is so, so fun. So this is like really, the green of this is making that red really bright, and the red of this is making that green really bright, which is wonderful. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we're going to do, I know in the steps I said mushroom bottoms, but I'm actually going to do a first layer of grass. The reason why I'm going to do that is because I want to give my tops a chance to dry a little bit more. Oh wait, I want to do something kind of fun. A little wet on wet in there to get like a funky texture on that mushroom.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. You don't have to do that, but I just thought it added a little bit of like, oh, what's happening there, you know?
Yeah, bring on the funky textures.
We love funky.
The funky fungi, as we say at the...
That's what I should have called these.
Funky fungi? Yeah,
Yes.
you should have.
Keenan, great name. Okay, so I'm gonna go with a different kind of green than my background. So I think if I stay within more a cooler green, like a blue green over here, then that will separate from this kind of yellow background, which is what I want. And I'm just gonna kind of like loosely put this in. And you can do a dry brush texture to leave some highlights in there. And don't worry, we'll go back and do more. This is just the first layer. Okay. Now let's do our mushroom bottoms. So I'm gonna be creating like a tan, creamy brown color, not fully brown. But brown is essentially dark orange, so I need to mix orange. So I'm gonna take yellow and some red. And then let's throw some green in there and like, let's just see what happens. Okay, that's a light brown. Beautiful. And I'm gonna add water to it. And let me flip my palette so you guys can see. So I had my brown, I swooped it over here with some water. So now I'm getting this tan color, which is good. That's good.
That's nice.
So I'm just gonna put that in here.
It's like utility cargo pant color.
Yeah, khaki.
Khaki.
So I'm kind of roughly putting it in the stems of my mushrooms. You don't have to fully paint the entire thing because those stems are like white, and so in the highlighted area, like in the middle here, it would be kind of a lighter value. So let me see if I can lift a little bit of that out because I forgot to leave it on this one. So I'm just wetting the area with water, taking my paper towel, there we go, lifting out a little bit of color. Now, where it's gonna be the darkest value on the stem is right underneath the tops, because the tops itself is casting a shadow on that stem. So, and if you look in the outline, you can see that I did some hash marks to show like there's gonna be a little bit of shadow here, so make sure you put that in. So you can grab a little bit more brown. But you wanna try not to smear your cap. Okay. I feel like it just needs just a hint of darker right at that top. Smooth that out. And this one, because this stem is so short, we don't have as much space to play with like value changes and form and stuff like that. So sometimes you just gotta do like, just need to do like a swoop. Dry brush texture is one of my favorites to get like a little bit of something on there without it being super detailed. So a little boop. I'm gonna lift up some of this color. I feel like it's a little too dark. There we go. Oh, that feels better. Okay, now I'm going to create a brown to go underneath the cap itself. And they kind of have these like really thin lines and like gills. Is that the right?
They could look like gills. You want me to Google it?
Sure.
I'll Google mushroom nail words.
So I mixed a brown, I'm using my 2, and I'm just kind of following the curve of this, like that. And then if you want that like dimensionality, right underneath, closest to the stem right here, is gonna be your darkest value of brown.
It is gills.
Is it?
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Wow. Gills, pores, or spines.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Now, as you can see here, there's a little bit of a white highlight where I didn't continue the background. So I need to like have my mushroom kind of cover those white areas. So you can add a little bit of the like the red lip, maybe. Or just this kind of tan color and just have the underneath part show more. But really we're just trying to hide the white spaces because the white of the paper is going to be like the lightest value, which will be like make it pop forward. And so we want to like push it back, make it clear where things are happening in space. And I'm gonna like, once your mushroom is dry, you can do little, like, these little things kind of come off of it along the right-hand side, like little growths almost. Or maybe you can do like a little dry brush texture. I'm going to switch to my 2, and then these have like little curvy detail lines. Yep. Now, another thing that you can do, and I didn't do this in the reference photo, but I just thought about it, where our mushroom is 3-dimensional, right? And we went to great lengths to create this kind of form on our mushroom with the sides being a darker value and then it moving to a highlighted area. That rule of light across a 3-dimensional thing would also be for these little white marks on top. So I'm actually going to take like a very, very light gray, and along these edges where they're kind of turning away, what happens if we were to kind of add a little bit of color to them? Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Oh yeah, it makes them less stark.
So it kind of like, again, would communicate that roundness of being like the ones along the edge maybe have a little bit of a different value to them than the ones that are right here on our highlight. Or maybe you're just like, I actually don't really care. I like how white they are. I want to keep that. Again, you get to choose that. I just want to give you the information and you can decide what to do with it. Okay, that feels pretty good. And if that's dry enough, you can go back in and put some detail lines. I lost mine a little bit when I was adding the color. And just know that you always have the option to, like, if you lose your detail, let it dry, go back, and just put it back in. No harm, no foul. Okay. And now we need to do our grass. So I mixed together a really dark green using space blue and yellow. And then I'm going to start putting in like chunks. And the reason why I'm not painting over the whole thing is if you look at grass in something that's in the foreground, there's layers to it, right? And to communicate all of those little pieces of layers, there needs to be highlights and medium values and dark values. And if I were to just do like thin grass blades across the whole thing in the same pattern, then it wouldn't, that's not necessarily true to what you would see in nature, because grass kind of weaves in and out, and some of it you can only see like behind chunks. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So we have to kind of think about, okay, well there's probably be like a dark value here, maybe a dark chunk here. And I like to drop in kind of that darker value on some of these chunks and just letting the paint move itself. And then you can also do some like thin grass lines too, especially a little bit along the top or on the sides of these mushrooms. But remember, our brain is going to want to do like the same marks, the same patterns, all the same way. And grass just doesn't grow like that. So you got to like purposely be like, nuh-uh, not today. Let me drop in some yellow. Make sure it goes all the way to your bottom though, bottom of your paper. Feels good. I'm gonna mess up some of it because I'm noticing like the same brush stroke angle over and over again. There we go. And then my middle mushroom head needs its little hint of the lines that are underneath. So this is just kind of where we're now, very last step, just finishing details, kind of covering up the white spaces, doing some detail and texture lines, making sure our shadows are dark.
Shadows blow my mind because they just make the mushroom, like on this side angle especially, the mushroom just looks like it's open.
Yeah. I know, it does so much.
It really does.
I'm just a sucker for like, I don't know, this kind of rough texture, dry brush technique.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's cool. I like that. I like just what happened there. There we go. Can I see the overhead?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Look at that guy. That looks good.
That's awesome.
There is a little bit of white here that I'm seeing, so I'm just going to put brown there. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And you'll see, and I hope if you guys have been painting with me for a while, you'll notice that every time you paint something, it's going to be different. And I am the living example of this, where I painted this project and I paint this. And there are some things that I really love about this, and there are some things that I love about this. And it's not about saying, oh, this is the best and the ultimate. In every painting, you can look for things that you like and things that you know that you can improve on. And that is not an attack on your skill level. That's not you bringing yourself down. That's you just saying, like, I know that there are ways to improve, but that doesn't mean that what I painted wasn't valuable, kind of thing. So like for me, I actually like my mushrooms on this painting better, but on my reference, I do like my bokeh background. I really liked how light I got some of my bokeh circles that I feel like I'm missing a little bit from here. One is not better than the other, and I think it's easy for us to say, oh, that background is different, so I don't like it, and then like totally dismiss it. So I'm challenging you to, it's okay to acknowledge the things that you can improve on, but I'm challenging you to focus on the things that you do like, because you learn from that too. And for me, it's just like, I think I really do like that I kind of shadowed the white things on this a little bit, and this was a little bit warmer, and I think I got a little bit better dimension underneath here. So focus on those things, pay attention to those things, acknowledge those things, and then just be like, okay, now I'm moving into another painting and I can take what I learned, and it could either be the same painting or a different one. It doesn't matter. Those are all things that you have learned that you can now like recall as you're continuing your watercolor journey. Should we do the reveal?
Yes.
The best part. Watcha.
Someone has to clean that tape up.
You do. That's like in the office when he's just like, someone will clean that up. We're the ones that gotta clean that up.
Does it again.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Look at that clean edge. You can see that I didn't let the color, and this is a great example. Here, the color went all the way to my tape. Here, because I was lifting up my brush, the color didn't go all the way to my tape. So you see that edge isn't as clean. It's not a big deal. I actually don't think you would even notice it if I didn't point it out. But just know that while you're painting, you want to make sure your coloring and painting goes all the way to the edge.
Kind of looks like it's trying to break off the page.
That would actually be really cool, especially if you did like a larger border.
Yeah.
Should we do a painting like that?
Yes. I think that would be really cool, because then you could say, let's choose this one section to look like the painting is trying to jump out.
All right. I'll do a project like that.
Yes. Won't do the beef stew project, but you will do this.
Yes, I will. So look for that.
Nice.
All right. If you need any of these supplies, you can find them at letsmakeart.com. If you want to share your work, we would love to see it. You have Facebook options, you have Instagram options, you have fridge options. Do it, share it, show it, take a picture, send it to your mom. They want to celebrate you. Why? Show your mom your painting.
Yeah, call her and say hello.
Call her, call your mother, or your father, or your sister, or your friend, whoever.
Or me.
Or me. Keenan's phone number is.
Whoa.
Okay, all of that hashtag and shareable information is in our project description page, so take a look at that. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.